Hi everyone. Today we are going to focus our lesson on the order of operations and solving expressions. So we started off class today asking you a question between a problem that Joey and Sarah did. If you notice, they have the exact same problem, 2 plus 3 times 4. And they both got completely different answers. That's a problem, all right? So if we have the same numbers and we have the same operations, but we can come up with different answers, we need to figure out a way so that no matter who does the problem, we all get the exact same answer. So somebody came up with the idea of, okay, let's do what's called the order of operations. Here's the order you should do things in so that we all get the same answer. So, order of operations. Purpose, to make sure that no matter who solves the problem, we're always going to get the same answer, as long as we follow the specific steps in order. So someone came up with a mnemonic device to help us remember the steps to solving an order of operations problem. And you might have heard of PEMDAS before. So we're going to talk about PEMDAS right now. PEMDAS, as you might have learned in elementary school, remember the phrase, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. And you can actually see the PEMDAS appear, PEMDAS. So if you remember your dear Aunt Sally, you can remember PEMDAS, and therefore the order of operations will always be with you to solve your problems correctly. So the P stands for parentheses, and that would be any parentheses, brackets, things that look at the top of your screen here. You're going to do all of those first within the problem, and you always start with the ones that are innermost and work your way out. The E stands for exponents, and that's when you're going to do any exponent, like 5 to the third power, 5 to the second power, anything with an exponent you're going to do next and get that simplified into standard form. The opposite of taking an exponent could also be considered square roots can fall in this category. 3 squared equals 9. The square root of 9 equals 3. And you'll learn more about square roots next year, but that's kind of where square roots would fall into if you ever see that in a problem. The next step is multiply and divide. My dear, multiplication and or division. So why are there two operations in one step? It's because they're both equally as important. Neither one is more important than the other. So what that means is no matter which one comes in the problem, it's whichever one comes first from left to right is what you do. So if multiplication comes first as you're working out the problem and you're moving your way, maybe I've got to go this way. All right, so you're working out the problem this way from left to right. If multiplication comes first and then division's over here, you have to start with multiplication. If division's over here, first part of the problem, and then multiplication, you would do division first. So whichever one comes first, starting from left to right, just like you read. And that's the same thing with Aunt Sally, the addition, subtraction. Both of them are equally important. Again, whichever one comes first as you're reading from left to right is what we do. So we're going to take a look. The next one is just giving you another display of a problem and maybe a hopscotch method of what it kind of looks like. I'm going to see if I can make this a little bit bigger for you. It's a little hard to read. That should work. All right. So in this problem, we're just going to quickly take a look at what we were just talking about. So the P means parentheses. So in this problem, we do all the operations within, starting with the innermost. So, I just lost my picture. Oh, I see it didn't disappear. It's good. We're all good. Okay, so we're going to start with parentheses. If we notice in our problem, there is only one set of parentheses right in here in my highlighter. So that's what I'm going to do first. 2 plus 3. So 2 plus 3 equals 5, and that is my first answer. And so what we're doing is we're taking a big problem and we're breaking it down and making it smaller, smaller, and smaller. So kind of makes it a V shape by the time we get done. So we just did the 5. 2 plus 3 equals 5. The parentheses now disappeared. And everything else, if you notice, everything else gets carried down in the exact same order. The 17 minus 5 squared divided all stays in the exact same location in the problem as you bring it down. Can't stress how important that is. You start mixing things up and changing the position, it totally throws your problem off and will get you a different answer. Okay, the next step is exponent. Any powers from left to right. Our only exponent here is 5 to the second power. So we just got done learning that any exponent is repeated multiplication. So that means 5 2 times, which means 5 times 5. And 5 times 5 is 25. And there is my answer there. So now I just simplified and put 5 squared into standard form. And now everything else gets brought down. 17 minus 25 divided by 5. The next step is multiplication and division from left to right. As I'm going from left to right, I have subtraction, and there's my division. So I must do division first. So now I'm going to do 25 divided by 5, and that gives me 5 as my answer. Bring everything down. The last step is adding and subtracting from left to right. Well, all I have left is subtracting. So 17 minus 5 gives me my final answer as 12. Da-dun, da-dun. Order matters. Everybody who does this problem, you should get 12 as long as you're following the steps correctly. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at what some problems look like in your foldable. So I'm going to move this over a little bit so you can watch me as I'm on the foldable. All right, so your foldable has the exact same thing we talked about. Gives you an idea of what the different brackets look like, what the square and square roots look like, the different multiplication symbols. Remember we talked about the other day how multiplication could just be implied and disappear. If it could be a number and then a parentheses and you don't see any symbol at all, and just two numbers next to each other like that, that means multiplication. Division, you can see the division sign, the sideways, the slashed fraction bar, or the big flat fraction bar. Get it out, Mrs. Meyer. And then adding, subtracting are pretty simple. There's the please excuse my dear Aunt Sally running down the side. On the inside, you just saw the last slide is exactly what we had before, talking about the doing parentheses of the innermost, which means if there are two sets of parentheses outside the problem, and then you see a little set of parentheses on the inside of the problem, it means that you would do these first. So if you want to do a little visual, you can. Evaluate all powers. So that would be something like 3 to the 4th power. If you want to remind yourself that that's 3 times 3 times 3 times 3, feel free to give yourself an example. So you would have to evaluate that and get yourself a final answer. And then the next one, do all multiplication and division from left to right. If you want to make a nice big arrow here, just to remind you that this is the direction you always look at, from left to right. So from left to right. So if we see multiplication in the problem first as we're reading from left to right, if multiplication's over here but division is further along the way, we would do multiplication first. The same thing, if we saw division over here on the left hand side of the problem and multiplication later on, we would do multiplication last, division first. Whatever is first as you're working from left to right. It's the exact same thing for addition and subtraction. Feel free to make yourself the arrow again from left to right. And what we're looking for is if addition comes first as we are reading, that's what we do first. If subtraction comes later on, we do that second. Or vice versa. If subtraction comes first, we do that first before we do addition. So again, it's whatever comes first, starting from left to right. So just some quick reminders of the order of operations. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do one problem with you. And you can write it down, follow along with me, and then you're going to do the next one on your own and show your teacher. So the very first problem is 10 minus 2 plus 8. So according to the order of operations, parentheses. There are no parentheses. Don't have to worry about that. Next step is exponents. I don't see any exponents in this problem. So the next step, multiplication or division from left to right. I don't see any multiplication or division. So last step, addition or subtraction from left to right. Well, I have both. I have addition and I have subtraction. So I start reading from the left to the right. Which one comes first? So as I go, sure enough, subtraction comes first. So what I'm going to do is I'm making a little V, showing you that this is what I'm combining first. 10 minus 2. 10 minus 2 equals 8. And then I'm going to bring everything else down in the problem exactly where it's at. We don't want to make any mistakes. We don't want to write anything incorrectly. So then all that's left is an addition problem. I'm going to make another V showing you I'm simplifying it even further. And 8 plus 8 equals 16. So this one's a simple order of operation problem. But you can still see that you have to make sure when they if they are together, that you are going from left to the right. So like you do right now is I'd like you to go ahead and do this next problem on your own and then show your teacher before you move on to the larger problem. All right, welcome back. You have an option here. If you want to attempt the big problem, I say go for it. You can always play the video, stop the video here, and then play it again and see how you do. This is definitely something you don't have to show your teacher unless you have a question, but go ahead and give it a try and then play the video and see if yours matches mine. Otherwise, follow along and we'll walk through one more example together. So to get started, I start with parentheses. So I look across, parentheses, there they are. So I'm going to start with 9 minus 6. So there's my V. 9 minus 6 is first. So I combine that and I simplify that to a 3. Everything else in this problem gets brought down. Now, do you have to do the little arrows? No, I'm doing the arrows to show you that everything must stay in this order. I cannot mess up what's going on in the order of this problem. So nothing changes. So then my next step is to look for, there are no parentheses, parentheses are done, exponents, there are none. So the next step is multiplication and division. Well, I have multiplication here, and I've got division here. So I have to do whichever one comes first, starting at the left. So this one is first, it's on the left. So I'm going to make my V, showing I'm simplifying those two numbers. 20 divided by 4 is 5. Everything else in the problem gets brought down, plus 17 times 3. Okay, the next part of the problem is continuing with multiplication and division. There's multiplication. So now we're going to jump to the end part of the problem, and I'm going to multiply 17 times 3. Multiplication table, write it out. You will not be able to use a calculator on the assessment, the test, so you need to make sure you're practicing without a calculator also. 17 times 3 is 51. Bring everything else down. And then wrap the problem up. 5 plus 51 is 56 is my answer. Is that what you got? If you did, good job. Good job of following the order of operations and keeping everything straight. You're on a roll. You could probably do the rest of the page without any help. You can pause right here if you want to, and you want to attempt the next problems on your own. Otherwise, I'm going to do one more sample problem with you, and then the other two you are on your own to show your teacher your answers. So I do want to do a problem with you with exponents. So that's where we're going to do this one right here. So no parentheses, but we do have an exponent, 6 squared. So that's what I'm going to do first. 6 squared is 6 times 6. 6 times 6 is 36. Bring everything else in this problem down in the exact same order. The next step is any multiplication and division, and there's multiplication. 3 times 36 is 108. Bring everything else down in the exact same order it is. And then our last step is to add 108 plus 104, which is 112. Is that what you got for your answer? If you did it correctly. All right, so you're going to do this problem and the problem on the bottom. This is a big one, but I know you've got it. You totally can do it. Just take your time, bring everything down, and use your order of operations. Good luck. Talk to you later.